Okay, so hi everybody and welcome. My name is Larissa. I'm from Accountant Online and we're joined today with Bank of Ireland. Bank of Ireland have kindly agreed to present the webinar today on opening bank accounts, new bank accounts as a result of the exit of the market of Ulster Bank and KBC. I know myself from having gone through the process that it's quite, I was going to say difficult. It's not necessarily difficult, but it is something that takes a bit of time and something that has to be planned for. And I suppose as business owners, we always push things that don't necessarily have to be done today down to the bottom of the priority list. And we're always firefighting and trying to take care of business. So this is just, I suppose, a webinar that we hope will help you understand what the process is, how to go about it, and maybe to explain that it's not necessarily as scary as we might think it is. So thank you to Bank of Ireland, and Barry, if I can bring you in.
Yeah, thank you, Larissa, and indeed to the Accountant Online team for asking us, Bank of Ireland, to join today. I'm sure it's the stuff of dreams for lots of us, getting to spend your Friday afternoon with a group of bankers and accountants. So, but look, hopefully this session will take some of the mystery out of getting the account opened and explain to people that it really is fairly straightforward. But I think importantly, from our point of view and from a banking industry point of view, is to get the ball rolling and get people engaged in the process. As you said, Larissa, my name is Barry Gallard. I've worked in the Bank of Ireland for over 20 years. I've worked in retail banking and business banking. Now look, we've been through lots over the last 10 years, from Brexit to the pandemic to recessions. But we've certainly never seen the disruption on a day-to-day basis that we've seen in banking due to Ulster Bank exiting. I know KBC are exiting too, but in the main, that business banking market is very, very significantly impacted. And I know your clients, Larissa, are all over the country, but for us, certainly in the Northwest, where there's a heavy concentration of Ulster Bank, we're seeing a very, very significant impact, a very positive impact from our point of view, and now we're getting lots of new clients, something you wouldn't be able to get in a normal banking market or indeed in a normal year. I know our conversation struck up, Larissa, a few weeks ago when I posted something up on LinkedIn, and you responded back to say, the process is difficult. People are trying to run their business on a day-to-day. I saw it on RTE a short while ago, inflation's running at 10%. So there's lots of challenges that business have, that they're encountering on a daily basis. And we've just come through the pandemic, so people were closed. They were trying to get their business up and running. And now you have this challenge of the energy crisis. So 100%, we acknowledge those challenges are there. But the fact remains, Ulster are going to exit, but they're not going to change their mind. So clients do need to establish a new banking partnership, and that's what we hope that you'll be able to do with Bank of Ireland. So there's probably good news and bad news. The good news is I think we're going to be able to show that the process is quite easy and quite straightforward to get the account open, and the process is indeed quite quick. Maybe the not so good news is there's still bits of work to do afterwards in terms of getting your supplier payments moved across, in terms of getting your direct debits, getting your online banking set up. But we do want people to be comfortable that we can bring them through that process quite comfortably. Today is about getting you started and getting you engaged and getting you moving. Two colleagues on the call today with me, Marjorie Morrison and Fenton O'Reilly. And the reason that Marjorie and Fenton are on the call is because this is what they're spending a significant amount of their time at the moment doing, which is opening new accounts for our clients and bringing them through that process and getting their, not just the account open, but getting their banking facilities up and running, which is really important. That, online banking plays a very, very significant part in today's banking. Credit cards, all those bits and pieces. That's what Marjorie and Fenton will help you with. And then we move on to potentially the more complicated aspects of banking in terms of borrowing and bits and pieces like that. But the key thing for now is we get the account set up. I think anybody who looked at the brief for the session, it was about getting customers started and understanding the documentation. So certainly after this call, it's going to be very clear what you need to do if you're a sole trader or if you're a limited company, depending what type of entity you are, what you need to do in terms of taking that next steps and what information you need, which is secondary to an extent because our team will take you through, and our systems are quite intuitive in terms that they will lead you through the process. So the vast majority of the accounts we open are being opened online. As Marjorie and Fenton will explain, the limited companies we're opening all of those on a face-to-face. We did have an online solution. We found there was too many clients getting stuck on that, so we've taken that away. So you will get a face-to-face meeting with the advisor to open your limited company account. So look, we're going to make this as straightforward as possible. I think, Larissa, you can pop up the agenda I'm gonna this stage I'm gonna hand over. I think Fintan's gonna take us through the first aspect of the call, and I will come back in at the end. I'll answer any general questions people have around banking, and indeed Margie and Fintan will take any more specific questions that you have around the account opening process. So I'm going to hand over to Fintan at this point.
Thank you, Barry.
Hey everybody, Fintan here. Good afternoon. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Great. So look, thanks very much, Larissa, and obviously Barry for inviting me on the call. So as Barry said, I'm going to run through the process for opening a sole trader account, also a partnership account, and then I'll touch on the personal account there, as we can see as well. So look, for a lot of small businesses, sole traders, obviously the account up and running is just themselves that they are concerned with. We have a very simple process for opening an account for sole traders, which is nice and easy. So basically the first step is we simply text a text message to the number 50365. BCA is what we text. So it's business current account. So you text BCA to 50365. If anybody has their phone on them at the moment and they want to go ahead and do that, by all means, go ahead and do that. You should immediately get a link back. So this link that you get back then on your text message, you literally click the link.
It's actually on the next slide. Larissa, just want to pop on so people want to see.
There we go.
There we go.
Okay.
That'll make it more straightforward. Thanks.
Yeah, sure. So so if anybody wants to text that BCA to 50365, you'll get your link back. So you literally just then click on the link. A couple of things that we would ask you to do then is you'll need photographic ID. And again, I think there's some information later on about what documents are acceptable, but mainly a passport or driver's license. And then we'll look for, as most people are moving from Ulster Bank, usually the most straightforward thing is to have is an Ulster Bank statement with your name, address, and dated in the last 6 months. You have these to hand when you click the link, and you should be good to go. Basically, all you do then is you click the link, click for sole trader. You follow the details through. It'll ask you to put in very basic information, name, address, date of birth, and so on, what the nature of the business is. It's a very quick process. It's a very slick process. What it allows you to do then also is you literally take a picture of your passport or indeed scan it, and you can upload this during the application. Also then you take a picture of your address verification, preferably the Ulster Bank statement, as I said, because this is always acceptable as long as it's dated in the last 6 months. And again, take a picture of that, that'll upload in the application, literally follow on through to a few more questions about tax residency, and then hit submit and finish. So what should happen then, shortly after that, is you'll get a text message, one to say that you've opened it, and you'll get all our terms and conditions and fees and charges, so on. And shortly after that, generally with a sole trader account, because it is relatively straightforward, those accounts, 80 to 90% of those accounts tend to open in about 2 to 4 working days. So it's very, very quick process for the sole trader. Okay. Now I'll move on to our partnership. For our partnership accounts, again, so typically I suppose you can have registered partnerships, the majority more so, or maybe more informal partnerships. So for example, a husband and wife, or farmers who are brothers or something along those lines, again, looking to open an account. Again, slightly different process. We haven't quite got it as slick through our online process, so it does mean that you have to meet somebody like myself or indeed Marjorie. So for this, again, we have a process just to get the ball rolling for that. So what you do is you text the word appointment to the same number, 50365. So you text appointment to 50365. Again, this gives you a little link. You pop in a couple of details. It's only name, address, email, and phone number. And what we do is we have a team who'll then contact you. They'll send you all the information that you're required to open the account, including whatever forms are relevant, because this is more of a paper-based process. What they'll also do then is set up an appointment for you at your local branch. So this can be whichever branch you choose anywhere in the country, and you'll get an appointment with a business advisor like myself or Marjorie, and then obviously to the appointment, bring the forms and the ID. We'll run through the process then, which is pretty much the same as doing it online. And then we get all those details sent away. And again, typically that takes a little bit longer. So maybe 7 to 10 working days for that account to open. Obviously, we're extremely busy with this at the moment, as you can imagine. So again, 80 to 90% are coming through. On the odd occasion, we will maybe look or request a little bit more information. But generally, it's just the ID that we require. So that's the process for our sole trader. And then a separate process for our partnerships. We'll come and meet somebody like myself or Marjorie. Just to touch on then very briefly and quickly, the reason I'll do this is the personal current accounts. The process is exactly the same as the sole trader process. Again, the only difference is you will text the letters PCA for personal current account to 50365. And it's the exact same process as a sole trader account. So if you have any company directors out there, or sole traders themselves or partners who need to open their personal current accounts as well, because let's face it, they have lots of their business and personal current accounts with Ulster Bank, need to move, maybe want to move all of it to Bank of Ireland, literally text PCA, have your photo ID and your address verification ready. And again, you can pop through that online. And again, that account should open in 2 to 3 working days. So exactly the same process. So literally just text PCA to 50365. So look, they're the two processes for the sole trader and for the partnership. And I'll hand over to Marjorie now, who'll bring you through the limited company, which is a slightly different process.
Fintan, just before we hand over to Marjorie, you had said for the sole trader current account 2 to 4 business days. Was that right?
Generally, yes.
Okay. So that's fantastic. So that's a week, say, a business week, and your account will be open.
Absolutely. For a straightforward sole trader account, absolutely. Because I suppose because everything is done digitally, it is a quick process. And it's exactly the same with the personal current accounts. 80 to 90% of these are opening in that kind of time frame, so within a week. What I would say is just on occasion, for whatever reason, there can be delay if we look for more information or something like that.
Sure.
But generally, the majority are through in 3 to 5 working days. Yeah.
Okay. And this is more of a general question. How long would you advise, just if you were opening an account, from when you start until when the whole process is finished, so everything's moved over, Fintan? How long should people allow themselves, I suppose, to get it all set up and running correctly?
Absolutely, we would encourage customers to, I suppose, keep their Ulster Bank account open. We would normally say, my advice normally would be at least a couple of months.
Okay.
The reason being for that, lots of people have, for example, say a monthly direct debit going out. So say, for example, you get in touch with them and you change over with your provider and say, look, will you now take this from my Bank of Ireland account, which is now open? On occasion, by that particular company, that may not be done.
Okay.
And they then take it out of Ulster Bank. So they haven't changed it, even though you've asked them to. If you've already closed Ulster Bank, you're going to get a bounce direct debit and cause you a bit of an issue. If you run the two accounts side by side for a couple of months, change your direct debits, make sure everything's coming out of Bank of Ireland, as long as time is allowing. And then once you're happy that everything is coming out of Bank of Ireland, then you can pop down, close off your Ulster Bank account. So certainly, as Barry was saying earlier, we would encourage customers to do this as soon as possible, so that they're not leaving to the last minute, so that they do have that time to change everything over, make sure that they're happy with Bank of Ireland, that everything's coming out of Bank of Ireland account, and then they can go down and close at their leisure with Ulster Bank, rather than being under pressure and trying to do it all in 3 weeks, which may not work. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Fintan. That was very helpful.
That's right. I'll hand over to Marjorie and she'll take you through the limited companies.
Okay, thank you very much, Fintan. Just before I move on to the limited companies, it applies to the sole trader as well as the limited companies. If you have a trading as name, so if you're Larissa Feeney, for example, trading as accountant.online.ie, it is so important to make sure that that is registered with the business the CRO, that your business name is registered. Because what I'm finding, that applies for sole traders, it applies for partnerships, and in particular for limited companies, that you might have the accountant.ie limited registered with a CRO, but you don't have the trading name. It might be trading as something else.
Okay, so you mean Marjorie, if say for example lodging checks or something like that in come in as the trading as name, the bank can't lodge them because the name isn't registered, so that can lead to a whole host of problems.
It can, and what we're seeing is that a lot of people maybe have had their accounts open historically for a number of years, and it was set up with their current provider, but now everything with compliance and regulation, everything must be correct before our compliance team will go ahead and add that trading as name.
And just on that point, for anybody that doesn't know, to register the name with CRO, to register your business name with CRO is a very straightforward process. We can do it for you, or you can do it yourself. I think it's €20 to register a business name. So it's not too hard to do. But if anybody has concerns about that, just get in touch with us and we can help you.
That's great, Larissa. And even if you haven't got the confirmation back, once we have the number that it's registered, we will go ahead in the process.
Okay.
So for the limited company, assuming that you've gone through the process, you have an appointment in my diary, for limited companies, it must be the director or the secretary that is completing the meeting for the application. So in other words, it cannot be the person that looks after the bank account in the office. It must be a director or secretary of the limited company. You will need to have ID and address verification for at least one director and the company secretary. And also at the meeting, what we will be doing is we will be sending DocuSign links to one director and the company secretary to complete the account opening application. So if, for example, it's a company secretary that attends the meeting, they must have the email address and the mobile number of the director who will be completing the DocuSign link. So while it's a physical meeting, there's only one document that needs to be signed in person, and that is the FATCA form, which is basically confirming your tax residency and that you are not, or if you are a resident in any other country for tax. So if the company secretary is an entity, for example, if you have a company formation specialist, and Larissa, if you want to come in on that, please feel free to interrupt at any stage. We will need to have the details of that formation specialist. And I'm finding that that is one of the obstacles that is holding up and delaying a lot of the company account opening process. In that, for example, maybe you've the company registered, but it's actually still a formation specialist that's listed as the company secretary, and maybe you've never changed that.
And we would act as company secretary for a lot of clients, Marjorie. And if you come across a business that's opening an account that has a formation specialist as their secretary, do you just need their details, or they don't need to be there with you, I think?
No, they absolutely. If, for example, if you're the formation specialist, we will need your email address and your a mobile number that we can send you the text code to complete the DocuSign link.
Okay.
So I'm probably looking at the challenges.
Sure.
I'm throwing them out there. The next step that's really important is to have the shareholding registered with the RBO. So I'm meeting a lot of companies at the minute, company directors, and they don't know who owns the shares in the company. So, for example, you can have maybe that it's a family business, and people are assuming that it's 50-50, but it's actually, whenever we go through the application, it's not, the share percentage may be different. So it's so important, number one, to know your share percentage of the company, but secondly, to have that registered with the Registration of Business Owners, the RBO.
And the RBO is it's a requirement now, isn't it, for companies to have their shares registered with the RBO? So all companies should have that, but I take the point that maybe it hasn't got around to everybody yet. So definitely make sure that's done. But it's interesting your comment on the shareholding. So you're finding that some companies, maybe the shareholding has changed over the years, or perhaps it's been the case for a long time and they just haven't looked at it in a long time, and they're just a bit confused as to what it actually is.
100%, absolutely. And we're seeing that maybe that people have made changes within their business and had assumed that was registered and updated with the company's office, and it has not. And again, that is thrown out what is delaying, really a business limited company account. If it's a straightforward limited company, private limited company, it should open within 7 to 10 working days. Okay. But these are the issues. These are the challenges that when they're not correct, we go back, and it may take 48 hours to go back to a customer, and then waiting on that to come back, and then back, and we're going over and back. And that's what adds the time and the delays. Okay. So I suppose the more information that we can have, Now, just on that, I'm actually meeting a lot of companies that are limited by guarantee.
Okay.
So in relation to companies that are limited by guarantee, the account opening process will take longer than the 15 days. And the reason for that is because there's a lot more due diligence to be completed. We need to know who are the directors, and we need to know a lot more about the company. So in relation to companies that are limited by guarantee, we will need their certificate of incorporation, we will need their memorandum and articles, and we will need to understand their business. So it doesn't mean to say that it'll take 30 days to open, but it'll definitely take longer than 15 days.
Okay, that's good advice. So basically you're saying, Marjorie, get all of the information ready first before you go in to see you, or to go in to see another official in the bank, and make sure you've got everything that you need in order to open it as quickly as possible.
Absolutely. And then, you know, if you're spending time and getting the appointment, we send you out a checklist. So what I've actually called out to you is from the checklist that is sent out, and that's why it's you know, I do take people that maybe come into the branch without an appointment, but I find that it's actually fruitless because a lot of this information is not correct. So whenever you get that appointment, or whenever you get the call back from my colleagues that are setting up the appointment, they will send you an email with A, B, C, and D, depending on what your company type and structure is. So it does open quicker then. We can see I had one this morning that opened after 4 working days.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah. Now the final, so I've gone through the mobile phone number, the email address for the one company director, company secretary, ID for one director and company secretary, and ID and address verification for any signatories on the account.
Okay.
So if you have maybe 2 or 3 people that sign on the account, we will need to know who they are as well. And finally, if you are a registered charity, and we're coming across a lot of that with companies, that they're a registered charity, let us know your charity number and you will get reduced fees. So we want to give something back as well.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
And is that, sorry, Marjorie, for interrupting you, is that for registered charities only? It's not for not-for-profits?
No, it's registered charities. Okay. So you need the CHY, that's what I call it, the charities number.
Okay.
That's what we go by. Yeah. So you must have your charity registered.
Okay.
Okay, so I hope now I haven't left anything out, but that's why it's so important in advance of your meeting to get the appointment, because you'll have all of that information, and it may take you a couple of days to gather all of that and check that everything's right. So there's no point in looking at that maybe the night before you're coming in the morning.
Well, it would be a shame if something like, you know, not registering the shares with the RBO, for example, stops you from opening the account. So some things like that can be sorted out very quickly before the meeting. Yeah. Well,
it certainly does delay the process. Okay. Absolutely. And again, these are not Bank of Ireland rules. These are right across the board. The central bank, as you know, that's where that's coming from. So it's every single financial institution will need the same information. Now, I was going to actually continue. I don't know if you want to do the same. My email address, if anybody wants to contact, and if you want to open an account in any other area in the country, like Fintan and I are based in the Northwest, you will, by texting that number 50365, be put in contact with a colleague in the branch of your choice, a location of your choice. But I'm willing to share my email if anybody wants any information. Is that okay?
That's great. Thank you.
So I've just put that in the box there now.
Perfect.
Thanks, Marjorie. I know, Fintan. I know we're going to cover just briefly as well, just the online banking aspect and credit card, because I know it's 2 of the things that are probably most common for companies as well that come through. So I think the online banking is the first, and we have 2 online banking platforms. But so I think, Fintan, is it yourself that's going to just take people through that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you can just flick on to the next slide there. Yeah, perfect. There it is. Okay. So like I said, we have two platforms, Business Online and Banking 365. Okay, so sorry, this is a bit small on my screen. So I think the Banking 365 is on the right hand side.
Yeah, you're right, Finn. It's just coming through a bit funny. The 365 is on the right hand side. The Business Online is on the left hand side.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll run through actually the one on the right hand side, the Banking 365 first. The reason being, I suppose, like this fits the majority of companies that we see. So I suppose what we would normally say is Banking 365 is a very simple, very easy to use platform. It's got an app. So once you open your account with Bank of Ireland, you'll get your debit card and your PIN number out, normally 3 to 5 working days once the account is open. Normally we ask people to activate those cards. So what I say to customers, look, when you're coming in to activate the card, maybe you want to lodge some money to the account, you can do that through our self-service devices in the branch. What we can do is then pop you on the phone and get you registered for online banking. That takes 2 or 3 minutes to get you registered, and then you're up and running on your phone. The platform itself allows you obviously to pay money out. It allows you to pay beneficiaries, so you can add suppliers, or indeed if you're paying people for wages. There are a few restrictions with it. So for larger limited companies, it's not suitable, but it is suitable for your smaller limited companies. One of the main restrictions is that it only allows you to send up to €20,000 in a payment in one day. So if a business isn't making very large payments on a regular basis, then the Banking 365 platform will suit them down to the ground, and there's no cost for this either. So it's a free platform, allows you to pull up your statements, send money internationally as well if you have any FX requirements as well. So that's our Banking 365 platform. Very simple, and it's actually the same for our personal current account. So again, if any of the people who are watching already have a bank account with Bank of Ireland personally, then the Banking 365 platform, they'll be familiar with it, is the same. Our second then on the left hand side, we have our Business Online platform. So Business Online platform, this costs €10 per month and is a more sophisticated platform. So this allows you to make larger payments, so you can make payments up to any amount that you wish, and also it allows you to mainly do things like pay payroll. So say, for example, it's a large limited company and they have 40, 50, 60 employees. Obviously, they're not going to be paying each one individually. It allows you to, I'm not too technical on this, but it allows you to drop bulk files in to all these people. One payment will go out of your account and then it'll pop off and pay 50, 60 people who need to be paid. There's a process around setting this up, but again, that's something we get into more detail later on. The Business Online, there are forms to fill with that. So it's, you'll get these from the branch when you go in, or indeed we'll send them on to you. It is incorporated into the application form. So normally if we meet a limited company, we'll say, look, we'll figure out whether or not you need Business Online or not. If you need it, then we'll just apply for that at the time and that'll be done. We recommend that everybody has Banking 365 because you can have Business Online and Banking 365. So you can have both platforms, and Banking 365 will allow you to download your statements, and it'll also allow for a card authorization as well if somebody makes a payment online. That's done through our Banking 365 app. So I don't mean to get too technical between these two things, but yeah. 365 will suit most. Yeah, go ahead.
So you can use both apps for the one account and use either as you need to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. So the reason I suppose that we say that companies need to have Banking 365 as well as Business Online is there are a couple of capabilities in Banking 365 that aren't available through Business Online. So getting your last 12-month statements, and also this card authorization. So it's our strong customer authentication where you have to swipe to approve if you make a payment online. Sure. People might be familiar with this. When they make a card payment online, you have to swipe to approve. That's done through Banking 365. So again, it's right that the larger company would have both, but most smaller companies will only need Banking 365, and that will facilitate them.
And just one a word of caution actually on this point that I just discovered. As I understand it, if you set up a supplier on either, I think there's a limit, there's a time where you can only transfer €1,000 a day from. Yes,
indeed. Yeah, that's come in more recently, thanks, Larissa. Yeah, it's worthwhile mentioning that. So for the first 48 hours, the maximum you can pay is €1,000. The bank brought this in recently, probably in the last 6 to 12 months. The reason being, there were cases of fraud, which unfortunately do happen. So what they decided to do was limit this. So if somebody sets up a new beneficiary and you're not aware, it happens, your details are compromised, the maximum that can be sent is €1,000. Obviously, the customer is more likely to notice this in the first 48 hours, get in touch with us, then we can see that the fraud has happened, hopefully get the money refunded for them. So yeah, that's something that we've brought in, I suppose, just to protect our customers.
Yeah. And I think where it was it really was really highlighted for me was if you're paying wages and if you moving from Ulster Bank over to Bank of Ireland and you happen to set up the beneficiaries on a Monday to pay the wages on a Monday, then you won't be able to pay your wages on a Monday.
Absolutely. And I suppose like this goes back then to probably what I said earlier in the presentation was like run the two accounts side by side,
Sure.
Set up all your beneficiaries, continue to pay from Ulster Bank for a week or two, make sure you're happy with the platform, make sure you're familiar with how it works, make sure you have all your beneficiaries set up. Obviously those 2 days will have passed and you shouldn't run into those issues.
Yeah, good advice. Thank you, Fintan.
No bother, that's great, thanks. And I'll over to Marjorie now, who I think is going to cover a little bit on credit cards and then on to some of the lending.
Thank you, Fintan, for that. So just what's up on the screen now is, you go back to the other page there, Larissa, is the what is acceptable for ID and address verification. You know, the passports, the driver's license, the college ID cards, the national ID cards, and also in relation to the address verification, it must be a household utility bill, for example. It cannot, unfortunately we do not accept mobile phone bills. So it's just worth having a few minutes looking at that if you are coming into the bank. But again, this will all be sent out with the account opening pack. So on I think it was on the second slide at the very bottom, you had said, how do I open an account? And the very bottom was a link to the Bank of Ireland's website. So in relation, the reason that I'm highlighting that is in relation to, if you go into the Bank of Ireland website and select business, we have at the very top, you're saying, I'm interested in. So for example, if you're interested in credit cards, there's significant information and details on that. Now, a lot of times when I meet people and doing the sole trader or limited company account opening, we'll go through the different options of credit cards. So if you're applying for a credit card, a good time to do it is when you're doing the account opening. So bring your last 6 months bank statements or email them to me in advance, and also your last 2 years financial accounts, because again, we'll be assessing that as a credit risk if you need a credit card, a business credit card. Again, that comes down for if you have a need for stocking loans, if you have a need for overdraft facilities, or recently we did have some really good SBCI loan supports for businesses. If we have all of that information on day one, we can discuss your needs in that area and look at the options that's best for you, so that even if, you know, when you're having that meeting and you're taking the time, I know everybody is busy, if we have the information at that first meeting, we can kind of give you an idea and an indication of what our process would be and what we feel would suit you best. But I'm not going to go into specific loans because I suppose everybody's business is different, but I would really encourage people to look at the Bank of Ireland website and go in under the business section for the different business credit cards, the gold credit cards, or the basic credit card. Now, every single account, every single company account will issue with at least one debit card. So if you feel that you don't need a debit card, it does issue, but you can just destroy it and we won't charge you for it. But if you have a need for more than one debit card, say that there's 2 directors or there's someone in the office that you do give a debit card to, that can be made available as well. But again, that's covered off at the account opening stage. So that's the credit cards, the debit cards, and really I haven't gone into the specifics on loans, but other than to tell you to bring your last 6 month statements and your last 2 years financial accounts to the meeting.
And on the subject of loans, Marjorie, from Ulster Bank's perspective, is the expectation that loans will also move across? Is that what they're hoping for? Well,
I'm open to correction on this, but my understanding is that if you have an overdraft, it is really up to you to get that sorted with another provider. It will not automatically move over. So if, for example, you have a loan and that moves to either permanent TSB or AIB, and you have a business overdraft, it's my understanding that you must go and reapply for that overdraft. But again, I'm open to correction on that. And I'm looking at, Bank of Ireland is a different bank to Ulster Bank. We still have to go through our credit process, and a lot of our credit process is online, which does speed it up. But again, it's having the information on day one. And sorry, so I'll just finish on this. And it doesn't mean to say that if you had an overdraft of 50,000 with the Ulster Bank, that automatically will transfer over. That is not correct.
That's exactly what I'm wondering, actually, because from a business's perspective, let's say using that example, if they're used to dealing or trading with an overdraft of 50,000, or they have a term loan of 50,000, it's not automatically going to transfer across. So that could impact cash flow, and that's a consideration as well the business needs to think of before they make the move.
Yeah, and for example, if you're a business that has seasonal needs for overdrafts and they're quite high, like that security, and you have a loan, that loan and security, if you may pass on to whichever bank it's going to be, AIB or Permanent TSB. But again, if you need an overdraft and we need that security, it's looking at these, giving yourself time in advance to plan what is the best option for you. And again, that's something that can be discussed, at the account opening process too.
Okay, thank you, Marjorie.
Yeah, I think Larissa, that covers most of Marjorie's touched on the lend. Just very briefly, from a lending point of view, you can apply for lending up to 120,000 online. Between 120 and 500, you do come through the business advisor and into business banking, etc. But up to 120, companies or sole traders can apply for their borrowings online. So, look, I suppose I trust that is kind of summarised reasonably well for people. So I think in a very high level summary, if you're a sole trader or a personal account, there is a very, and we're happy to stand over this, there's a very straightforward online process to get those opened. That's not to say that there's not small numbers that are choosing not to do that. They can still get an appointment in the same way. But look, the process is so straightforward and intuitive that it's quite easy for companies to go through that. As Vincent and Margie said, for our limited companies and for our partnerships, we believe ourselves an appointment is the best system. It means things go through first time. And I think where customers get frustrated, and let's be honest, where we get frustrated in the bank is where things don't go through in the first time. So it's a much better service for the customer. You're establishing a good relationship and a good footing from day one. So we're very happy to have those come straight through to our advisors. I suppose what we're trying to do to some extent now with business customers across the board, I know people don't want to hear that expression, flatten the curve again, but to some extent to take these in gradually, as opposed to having lots of them coming at the one time. And I suppose that's what's going to drive long waiting lists, because in the main you can get an appointment now within 6 to 7, 8 working days into Marjorie or Fintan's diary, or indeed someone else throughout the country. But we don't want that to be a scenario where that's 3-4 weeks, because as Fintan said earlier on, if you want to run those two accounts together at the same time, you certainly want to give yourself enough time to be sure, because as Fintan said as well, you're relying on whatever utility company it is to change over your direct debits. And again, I can only imagine they're under very, very significant pressure themselves, because there's so many accounts to move across. So look, I think that slide 3 hopefully gives people plenty of direction as to what they want to do, and if they want to read a bit in more detail, and they can go into the website and do that. So I don't know, Larissa, is there any questions you or anybody else has for us?
If anybody has any questions, you can pop them in the chat. I'll call them out if any come in. Just in the meantime, I would also just add to that, just from my own experience of making the change, and I haven't even fully made the change yet, so I will say that. But it did take a while, as it does, to get the account open and to get the 365 online up and running and everybody authorized and all of that. And it was a new platform to us, so we have to get to know it, and we're used to dealing with Ulster Bank for a long time, so we had to get to know it. So what I've done is we've made a plan in terms of listing out our direct debits, listing out our standing orders, listing out who pays into the account, and so everybody that we need to notify, in other words, so then we can plan it out over the coming month or 6 weeks or so to make sure that we haven't forgotten anything. That's the approach we've taken. And then, as Fintan said, and Marjorie as well, to have everything with you whenever you come to the appointment will speed up the process, but crucially to try to leave yourself enough time to run both accounts side by side for a period of time to make sure that suppliers continue to get paid, that revenue continues to get paid and that your employees continue to get paid, so that you can keep the show on the road, I suppose, through the transition period, because business has to go on, and that's the main thing, and this all has to happen in the background, you know.
Can I just add one thing to that, Larissa, is I've seen some customers that have put a lot of effort in getting the account open maybe at the start of the summer and have not activated the account. They've not made a lodgement, they've not set up Banking 365. That will automatically close in our system after.
Oh, wow. So after how long, Marjorie? Well,
I wouldn't leave it longer than 2 months.
Really? Okay, so that's really good advice.
Yeah, because we're seeing people that've gone through that process, they've gone through the challenges of getting everything right, and suddenly they've left it for 3 months and the account's gone.
Okay. Oh my goodness. And that would just be heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking. And it's heartbreaking for everybody.
Heartbreaking for everybody.
So we have to start again. We have to start again with the process.
Yeah. Okay, that's difficult. Thank you, Marjorie. I did not know that, so that's great to know. Thank you very much. Barry, do you have anything further to add?
No, look, just to say, as I said at the outset, just to say thanks to yourself and Accounting Online for giving us the opportunity. Look, we hope people have found it to be of benefit. I suppose our appeal in general is to get people to grasp the nettle and to get going, because we know it's not a pleasant experience. So hopefully, even there's a few people on the call, or indeed a few people that will listen to the recording, that'll actually text the number or get on the website and start the process off. As I said, it's in the main. Look, the reality is there's thousands of people doing this every week right across the country, and they're getting it to work. But I suppose the appeal is to get it going early, and at least it's a much smoother process, and we can run the two accounts. But thank you for taking the time thank you for giving us the opportunity to come on today and talk about what we can do. And as we said, Marjorie's put her email in there, but all of the information is up on the website. You can select whatever your local branch is in any part of the country and get the process going. So thanks everyone, and have a nice weekend.
Thank you very much, and we appreciate you taking the time to help us understand the process. It isn't an easy thing to do, but it has to be done. So thank you very much, and the best of luck over the coming months. I know you guys are going to be very busy.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.